So I want to begin this morning with a poem, and it is entitled, appropriately, The New Year. I am the new year. I am an unspoiled page in your book of time. I am your next chance at the art of living. I am your opportunity to practice what you've learned during the last 12 months of your life. All that you sought the past year and failed to find is hidden in me. I am waiting for you to search it out again, and this time with more determination. All the good that you tried to do and didn't achieve last year is mine to grant, providing you have a clearer intention and fewer conflicting beliefs. In me lies the potential of all that you dreamed but didn't dare to do, all that you hoped but did not perform, and all that you prayed for and did not yet experience. These dreams slumber lightly, waiting to be awakened by the touch of an enduring purpose. Yes, I am the new year. So I say welcome to all of you to the new year. Welcome to 2016, a year filled with promise, filled with opportunity, filled with an ability to express anew, in a renewed way, in an expanded, expansive way. I'm excited about this year for us as a community. I'm excited about this year for us all personally and individually. So this is what I'd like us to do, just kind of set the tone for the new year, and that is to turn to somebody and say 2 lines, and here they are. First of all, welcome to the new year. The second one is, amazingly awesome things are in store for you. Got it? Welcome to the new year. Amazingly awesome things are in store for you. And then, amazingly awesome things are in store for me this year. Let's say that one. Did you notice a little more enthusiasm for that one? Yeah, I noticed a bit more enthusiasm for that one. That's all right. So in the tradition of religious science, and I've been at this now, I think this will be my 19th, January. Maybe 20th, I'm not sure. I'd have to figure that one out. But anyway, it's been a while. It's been a few. It's the tradition in January to get back to the basics. And by that, traditionally, we have explored the first 4 chapters of this, well, really pre-chapters of the Science of Mind textbook. It's before they start numbering chapters. So, but there are 4 little passages. It's a total of about 70 or fewer pages. And they're entitled The Thing Itself, The Way It Works, What It Does, and How to Use It. And traditionally, each Sunday of the month of January, assuming there's 4 Sundays, we have a bonus Sunday this month, but normally there are 4 Sundays. Traditionally, the religious science minister takes a chapter a week. I've done that a lot. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm tired of doing that. So this is what we're going to do that-ish. This. We're going to do a Michele version of this. Yay! We will not go by week, chapter by chapter. We won't do that. But we will explore the concepts and a lot of terminology that shows up in those chapters. How many of you know the story of those chapters, by the way, like how they came to be? Oh, not that. Oh, now, more of you have taken foundations, and I tell this story in foundations. So I had like 2 of you raise your hand. You'll recognize this story. I'm going to tell it real quickly. So Ernest Holmes was beginning his work is in ministry, which he didn't even know it was ministry at that time. He was just talking to people about the things he'd read. And he was lecturing, and people loved his lectures, and more people were coming every week when he had these lectures in a little room in a library. Finally, they said to him, "Do you have anything written down that we could take with us and read?" He said, "No, I don't have anything." Well, we want something. They said, "We want something." So he wrote what has become these little 50, maybe it's 50 to 70 pages, that is the beginning of the Science Mind textbook. He wrote that, and I can just imagine that he mimeographed it. How many of us are old enough, don't want to admit it, to remember those purple mimeograph machines? How many of you loved to sniff that paper as a kid? Yeah, oh. I know, I did as well. I'm sure that was not good for us, but it smelled good when it came off the machine. Anyway, I suspect he mimeographed copies and he handed them out, and people just devoured them. Like, oh, we're so excited that you did this. And like in 2 weeks, they came back and said, what else you got? What else have you written? He said, well, nothing. Well, you need to write something else. So he did. So he wrote this. And you know what? This may sound religious science sacrilege, but here it is. Everything that he wrote is just said, those first 4 chapters are said in a different way, kind of over and over again, in different ways, to appeal to people who read and learn differently. But everything about our teachings lives in the first pre-chapters, the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. So this month we are going to explore those chapters by looking at terminology, concepts that come out of those chapters. Concepts such as mental equivalence, spiritual truth, the absolute, divine creative process, false beliefs, divine intelligence, subjective mind, consciousness, principle, the affirmative life, the law, divine right order, etc., etc., etc. Now that was a long list. And you may have gone, whoa, that sounds like a whole new language. Is that a foreign language? Well, if you're new to science of mind, it can sound like a foreign language. And even if you've been in it for a while, those aren't terms that we just throw out there normally. So I want us to really ground this month in those terms. What do they really mean? And not only what do they mean here. It's important to know what they mean here, to have an intellectual knowing of them. But what really matters is to know what they mean here. In other words, how am I living from that concept? So that's our plan for this month. And today, we're going to throw a bunch of those terms all at once at you in the longest and probably dullest title ever given to a sermon. And here it is. This is today's sermon title. Activating the divine creative process through the law and dispelling false beliefs to lead an affirmative life and experience amazing demonstrations. Yeah, longest ever, for sure, and perhaps the most boring. And I did that for a reason. Because sometimes Ernest Holmes' writings and these concepts can seem, let's call them ponderous. Let's even call them dull. They can seem that. On the surface, they might be. But underneath, they're not. Underneath, they're rich, they're alive. Underneath, they give us a way of being that totally changes our lives if we want that. If we're looking for a life that is more rich, more full, more joyous, more love-filled, more creative, more on purpose, then these teachings will do that. But we have to get past the language of it. And that's what we're going to do this whole month and today. Again, activating the divine creative process through the law and dispelling false beliefs to lead an affirmative life and experience amazing demonstrations. So I'll define what all of those mean, not only here, but we'll begin to move them to here. So the first piece, we're going to chunk it up into 3 pieces. The first piece is activating the divine creative process through the law. So what the heck does that mean? Now, many of you have taken the foundations class. So, by the way, now that I told that little story about Ernest Holmes, how many of you remember it now? Thank you. Very good. Now I'm glad. Just needed a little jogging. So you might need a little jogging of what I'm about to say next. And what I invite you to do is not, when I start to tell you this, not to say the words that just put a trap on any learning and expansion. Those words are, I already know that. Right? You might already know this. The question is, are you practicing what you know? So, divine creative process and the law, the 2 terms that I want us to explore today, they are actually, even if you don't think you know them, you look at them every single time you come into this sanctuary. You look at them symbolically because of that symbol that's behind me. That's just not a pretty stained glass, although it is. It's more than that. It is our Science of Mind teaching symbol. And it has a variety of components, and we'll explore all the components over the course of this month, not all of them today. I want to do really 2 anyway, I'll tell you what we're going to do today. We're going to do the V, that V thing in the middle. That V actually symbolizes the divine creative process. How? I'll tell you in a moment. And then the three sections that are in there, you'll notice three sections within the circle. Those three sections depict the three elements or aspects or dimensions of God. They illustrate, symbolize the triune nature of the divine. I will save the top one and the bottom one for next week. Today I want to talk about the middle one, which is the law. The law. The law is God's process by which things are made manifest. It is simply the assembly line, if you will. It is the plant where, the construction plant where things are just, where they're just made. There isn't any question about whether or not it is to be made. It's just made. Just like the assembly line receives the designs for the car, let's say, and just makes the car. The assembly line, computer, robot, or person, none of those say, I don't think you really want the fender there, I think you want it here. No, it just says yes. The law of God just says yes. Whatever is planted in the law of God simply manifests itself. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter if it's a divine idea from the mind of God or an idea from our mind. It's planted in the law, and it is made manifest. Now, there's a little key there that affects things, but you have to take the foundations class to learn about that. So join me this month. I'm teaching it starting in the middle of this month, so if you haven't taken it yet, come join me in that class. The divine creative process says that the V is open at the top, meaning anything is possible at that level of the divine. At that level of spirit, anything is possible. So there's a particular divine idea that gets plucked out of the infinite, invisible ethers. It gets planted into the law, which is the middle section, and comes out as a demonstration. Oh, there's a word for today, which is the point of the V. That is the divine creative process. The infinite idea drops into the law, comes out as a singular experience or a demonstration. Now, often we ask, like, the law, why does the law work? How does the law work? I want to give you an example or a story of the answer to that question. This happened here. Many, many years ago, one of our youth, she was about 5 years old, she was in our youth ministry. And that particular Sunday, the teacher in the youth ministry taught them, the little ones, about the law. And the little girl was telling her mom later that day that she learned about the law. And her mom is very excited that, that's kind of a grown-up concept that they talked about in youth church. And so her mom's wanting to engage her in more conversation about it. And so she says, well, honey, tell me, how is it? How does the law work? How does it work? And the little girl, with a bit of attitude, put her hand on her hip, stood with her feet apart and said, Mom, it works because it's the law. So don't be asking how it works or why it works. It works because it's the law. And we've been told that. So the divine creative process, infinite possibilities, gets plucked into the law, and then boom, out comes an outcome or a demonstration. So the deal is, you cannot not create. You cannot not create. It's happening. The process is happening all the time, whether you know it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you believe what I just said or not. I believe it's working all the time. So the question is, are you using it consciously? Are you consciously working with the law, with the divine creative process, to bring your life, the highest desires and dreams and goals and aspirations of your life and the life of your fellow human beings? Are you using it consciously? That's where we take the idea from the idea to the heart, is when we start to use it consciously, because again, I will say, you cannot not create. Ernest Holmes tells us on page 36, in our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. There it is. We can use the law for our good. We can use the law for destruction. It's up to us. The choice is ours. I love a line from the poem that I began with, and it said, all the good that you tried to do and didn't achieve last year is mine, meaning this year's, to grant, providing you have a clearer intention and fewer conflicting beliefs. Because when we plant conflicting beliefs in the law, then we get whatever is the strongest belief. Right? So we may have a desire to create a life of just really a new level of financial abundance. That's one of the 3 things that Lonnie's going to talk about in his class. Financial abundance is something that's on many of our minds. And if it's not on your mind, it's on the person sitting next to you, I'm pretty sure. So we may have a desire to experience more increased flow and an easier flow of financial abundance. But if we have a belief, first of all, if we get hung up in the belief that what's in our checking account is the truth, that's called believing in conditions and circumstances. That's a false belief. There's another term. A false belief is believing more in the condition or circumstance than we believe in the spiritual truth. The spiritual truth, despite what is in your checkbook, is that you are an abundant child, manifestation of God. That you have a rich mother, father, who only wants to provide for you and care for you and protect you and supply you with all the good that there is. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, our master teacher Jesus told us. It's ours, and yet so many of us struggle financially. So dispelling false beliefs is a hugely important piece in order to activate the divine creative process through the law for our good. So I would like you to think right now, if there are there any false beliefs that you might have hanging out in you right now? Yeah. Thank you for being honest. I like that. There might be 1 or 2. You know, if you're still on this planet, if you're still walking around, talking and breathing, then I suspect that there's something that you could work on. So right now, I just invite you to get an idea of what that limiting belief, false belief might be. Maybe just one of them popped up into your mind. Maybe it has to do with your physical well-being, your health. Maybe it has to do with relationships. You know, I know I worked with a woman for a long time, and I worked unsuccessfully with a woman for a long time on relationships because this was her mantra. She was over 50 years old. Here was her mantra. There are no good, and she was heterosexual. Her mantra was, there are no good men available after 50. That was her mantra. No matter what we did, we prayed, we worked, but every time we'd sit down, well, you know, Michelle, there just aren't any good men available after 50. Well, okay, then guess what? There aren't any good men available after 50. For you, for somebody else, there will be, right? Hello, I couldn't, but you know, it wasn't mine to do, it was hers to do, so there you go. So what do you have one in your mind that you might be going like, oh yeah, I got that. So if you do, this is what, you don't have to reveal what it is, I just want you to say, this moment I release that limiting belief. This moment I release that limiting belief. And I plant my heart's desire, in the infinite law, and allow the divine creative process to do its work. So I don't mess it up by taking back that false belief. Amen. And so it is. Because that's what we do also. We take back our false beliefs, right? Like, oh, I got rid of that. Oops, there it is again. And then we give it energy and time and space in our head. No. The creative process is working how often? Always. You cannot not create. So use it wisely. This is the year to use the creative process more wisely than you ever had. So we've just done a little bit of dispelling false beliefs. If you want to really dig into dispelling a false belief, I suggest you take Peter, not Foundations, I'm not pitching that again, but Peter's class, Personal Growth. That's an amazing class for taking a particular issue and working with it. When I first taught that class, which was now 15 or more years ago, I taught it and I took it. I did both. And my issue was, very briefly, some of you have heard this story, but my issue was that we were getting ready, like 6 months from then, to go scuba diving, or to go to the Caribbean on our very first time we ever went to the Caribbean. We had rented a boat, and we were going to charter a sailboat for 7 days. Heaven on earth. It is heaven on earth. And we were talking about scuba diving. I was terrified beyond words at the prospect of scuba diving. I was horrified. I'm going to die under there. Right? So that was, but I believe I'm an infinite being, and I believe I'm a capable person, and I have all these beliefs, but the false belief there was this huge fear and terror of relying on this thing of oxygen on my back and a mask and all to. I decided to work on that in this class. And it was a 15-week class, I think, or some crazy amount. It's shorter now. But anyway, I worked with the students and doing all the practices that we did and all the support we got from a prayer partner in that class. And I worked on that belief. And you know what I got? I got to a belief under my belief. So sometimes our limiting beliefs, there are things hiding underneath them. I was afraid, originally, I thought that I would suffer physical peril by scuba diving, and I realized that was not my fear. That was not my fear. Here was my fear. In scuba diving, those of you who do it, you know that you have a buddy, and you are responsible for your buddy. So if something should happen to your buddy, then you go help them, and vice versa. My fear, terror fear, was that I would not be able to help my buddy, who would be my beloved husband, Lonnie, if something were to happen. That I wouldn't have the whatever, but the wits about me, the skill, the clarity, the calm to assist him should something happen to him. That was my fear. That was underneath it all. And in that class, I got it. And the classmate, my prayer partner in that class, helped me work on that fear. And we went ahead and I got certified, and we went down, and we've done how many dives now? I can't even tell you how many dives, but a bunch. We've been to exotic places and had amazing experiences in that whole new planet that lives underneath the water that you just can't see until you get down there. So I will be eternally grateful to that personal growth class for helping me get to that level of understanding. And I'm happy to say that there was one point in our history of scuba diving. I didn't really have to do very much, but I did have to come to the rescue of my partner, because my partner, who was very, let's say, energetic under the water, and he had the camera, and there was this big shark that he was following to get a picture of. There you have it. I'm swimming along, and all of a sudden I feel him very close to my side. And like, he doesn't usually swim that close to my side. What's he doing there? And then I feel him like kind of pulling at something, like, what in the heck is, and so all of a sudden he takes, for those of you who don't scuba dive, just so you know, it's called a safe second. It's a second regulator that taps into the oxygen. So you have one in your mouth and you have another one for this very reason, in case your partner happens to run out of oxygen. So my partner was running out of oxygen, and so he just slowly comes up and takes my safe second. So this is how I saved him. I was able to save him. Thank goodness. I had my wits about me to let him use my safe second. And we all survived it just fine. All right, so to move to the affirmative life. What is the affirmative life? It is doing everything I just was talking about, is seeing the spiritual truth of things rather than the condition. To not be mesmerized by a condition that might be in front of you. To not let the fear lead you and guide you, but instead to see the spiritual truth, to know who you are and whose you are and the way life works, and to live from that perspective. To live from that is living the affirmative life. And I heard a spiritual teacher say this once. I don't know where he got this statistic, but I love it. And so I am accepting and knowing that it's true. That one affirmative thought, one thought based on spiritual truth, on goodness and wholeness, and knowing that God is in the center of everything, one affirmative thought is 100 times more powerful than a non-affirmative thought. Isn't that encouraging? Because, some of us that have had a lot of those non-affirmative thoughts. But just to know that one of them is 100 times more powerful. One affirmative thought is 100 times more powerful than the other ones. I love that idea. And since it's done unto you as you believe, I believe that statistic is true. And so there we go. And if you want to take your level of demonstrating simply means using the divine creative process to create your good. That's a demonstration. If you want to use an amazing power to take your ability to demonstrate a higher level, then it's the class Lonnie's offering, which is The Power of Love, based on a book by Rhonda Byrne of The Secret fame. And it's a really great book, and it will be a great class. So we have 3 classes that will serve and support you beautifully, no matter where you are in your journey. So we've laid some groundwork this morning. It's a little bit heady, I know, but we needed to get the information so then we can use the information. So we've got the divine creative process. It's always working because it activates the law. We've got the affirmative life, which is living not from condition, but from spirit, from source. Dispelling false beliefs meaning beliefs that aren't aligned with spiritual truth. And a demonstration, which is simply the result of our using the divine creative process. So I want to do all of that. I'm going to put all of that together now in a writing from Ernest Holmes, and it's simply called Affirmations for a New Year. And these are beautiful, and I invite you to close your eyes, and as we take these in as our closing prayer. Affirmations for a new year. They're written in the first person, so make them your words. I am living in the continual expectancy that every good thing in my experience shall be multiplied. There is neither doubt nor uncertainty in my mind. I know the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty has given me life. I have complete confidence in the Spirit and its action in my experience. I affirm that today, every day, is filled with blessings for myself and for others. The past is gone, and I gladly loose it and let it go. The present is filled with peace and joy, and the future filled with hope. Gratefully, I accept divine love and givingness and extend them to everyone I meet. I am made whole with the wholeness of spirit. I am guided into right action and successful accomplishments of all my good desires. This I accept, this I experience, and for this I am deeply, deeply grateful. And so it is.